What is the greatest mystery in all of Africa? This one may surprise you. I'm going to tell you about the incredible place that left archaeologists speechless, shocked, and in denial. And they had to find a way to erase its story. But first, what actually happened here? Long ago, before the 11th century, there was a powerful and wealthy trading empire here. Their capital was an incredible city of stone. Walls were 30 feet high, so tall that a person could stand on top and see for miles. But the people who lived here weren't called builders, because that's too basic a word for what they did. They were engineers, master builders, planners, astronomers, scientists. There are over 800 different structures here, from elite residences to religious sites and places we don't understand yet. The streets were carefully planned, likely paved with brick and stone. There were drainage systems to move water away from houses and businesses. It was an incredible place. They built everything from a single material, granite. They cut and shaped huge rocks into blocks and fitted them together like a giant puzzle. They didn't use mortar. These stones are still standing simply because of their genius design. They knew how to make large buildings quake-resistant. They laid lower courses of huge blocks close to the ground, and as they built up, they used smaller and smaller stones towards the top. So if there was an earthquake, the small stones would be more likely to fall and break up, but the massive base would stay intact. The people of Great Zimbabwe got so good at building with stone that they started making towers and cones, almost like skyscrapers. But instead of glass and steel, it was just rock after rock. Somehow they lifted these rocks to unbelievable heights. To get to the top, they used a ramp system made of wood, rope, and levers. Then when the building was finished, they took the ramp down. How do we know? Because that's how other African builders did it in similar places, like at the Great Enclosure of Mapungubwe, another impressive ruin about 200 miles away. Today, we call this place Great Zimbabwe, meaning Great Stone Houses. But the locals have a name for it that's closer to remembering the truth. Shona people call it Dladziva, which means the House of Stone. The Ndebele people call it Imakala, meaning the place of stone walls. But why is it a mystery? Well, when the British came through here in the 1800s, they couldn't believe that Africans built such a grand place. So they tried to erase the truth. First, they refused to accept reality. They said, "There's no way Africans built this. We must find some other explanation." So they made wild guesses. Some said it was Arabs. Others said it was the Phoenicians or even aliens. Then they found European explorers who agreed with their theories, or they made up quotes that never even happened. They twisted history to say whatever they needed it to say. One British researcher in 1890s, J. Theodore Bent, wrote a book where he said the true builders were a mysterious white race that looked just like him. He called them the Mogadishu people, probably because it sounds like a European name. But he admitted that he never met any living members of this group. He said they disappeared, leaving only their ruins behind. His theory was basically that black Africans couldn't have done this, so it must have been white Europeans. This idea stuck around for decades. People repeated his claims until it became an official policy of the Rhodesian government. They passed laws banning books that said Africans built Great Zimbabwe. Instead, schoolbooks told kids that white people built it. And then after a while, they changed the story again. When everyone was focused on the racial war, they quietly made the history books blank. They pretended that nobody knew who built it. But in the 1950s, finally, modern archaeology began. Teams came here to solve the mystery once and for all, and they discovered the truth that had been right in front of them the whole time. But you won't learn this fact in most American schools. But guess what? Researchers found evidence that showed the builders of Great Zimbabwe were Africans. Their tools were made of iron. They found bits of pottery with designs identical to those found at other sites across southern Africa. And they found ornaments made of gold, hundreds of tiny gold beads. And where does gold come from? Gold comes from the ground, specifically from mines. Archaeologists traced the source of the gold back to nearby hills. They excavated the mine shafts and dated the mining tools. Great Zimbabwe's builders were using metal tools at the same time and in the same places as other African societies. And the gold itself could be traced to a gold rush that happened in the region during the 14th century. African kings and local chiefs were all fighting to get their hands on gold and get rich. But most excitingly, archaeologists found Chinese porcelain, bowls, plates, and cups that were shipped along the coast of Africa, traded from China all the way to the Indian Ocean. And they also found Arab coins circulating here. All of this confirms what the locals had been saying all along. Great Zimbabwe was part of a massive trade network that reached all the way to Asia. And when archaeologists checked out the local oral traditions, they learned that these stories matched exactly what the physical evidence was saying. So the mystery was solved. And yet here's the crazy thing. Even though every piece of evidence points to African builders, it still isn't widely accepted. You can read articles from 2023 saying that nobody knows who built it or that it was definitely Arabs or whoever. And you might be wondering, well, why is that? If the truth is so obvious, why is this mystery still alive? Well, because Great Zimbabwe challenges the most powerful myths ever told about Africa. It disproves the idea that Africans were tribal people who lived in huts, hiding in the jungle, barely speaking to each other. If you look at the ruins today, you can see that the people of Great Zimbabwe were urban people. They lived in planned cities with paved roads, running water, places of worship, entertainment, and commerce. They were experts in math, science, astronomy, and engineering. But the truth is that throughout history, Europeans rarely encountered African civilizations like this. They always found rural tribes, simple villagers, or people living in jungles. That's what the colonial mind wanted to believe. They had to prove that Africans were uncivilized so that they could take their land and exploit their labor. So when they encountered the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, they couldn't accept the truth. They chose to erase it, to hide the evidence, to lie and spread propaganda instead. So even after modern archaeology proved beyond a doubt that Africans built Great Zimbabwe, the mystery remained. The myth stayed alive because it helps prop up the idea that Africa was never civilized, that Black people couldn't possibly build such a grand place. It was too shocking to think that Africans could be so advanced. And the British especially want to erase this story because it challenges the entire foundation of colonialism. Imagine being an African and seeing these ruins for the first time. What would go through your mind? You might think, wow, my ancestors were amazing. They created this place. They were masters of architecture. They designed ingenious systems. They were connected to the rest of the world. You feel proud. But imagine being told, no, you're wrong. That's not your history. In fact, you probably wouldn't even know this place existed. When colonial authorities banned books telling the truth about Great Zimbabwe, they made sure that generations of African children grew up knowing nothing about their own history. Even worse, they made sure that kids around the world had no idea that Africans built this place. But Great Zimbabwe wasn't lost. It was silenced. And now we're here to listen to the truth. Today, the ruins are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but it's not too late to add to the story. After archaeologists uncovered the evidence in the 1950s, they kept digging here every year. New discoveries changed our understanding of the site. They found Hill Complex, which may have been a royal palace or administrative center. They discovered soapstone birds, hundreds of them, carved by hand from solid rock. It was a craft unique to the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. And they found gold artifacts, thousands of items that were made with an artisan's touch, little gold beads, pendants, earrings, even a crown. These treasures reveal how wealthy the people of Great Zimbabwe really were. It's impossible to know exactly who walked through these city gates or sat on these stone steps. But one day we'll learn more about the rulers who commissioned these buildings, who dreamed of connecting Africa to Asia. And when that day comes, we'll be ready. No matter how hard they tried to erase it, Great Zimbabwe still stands. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to History Rewritten and leave a comment below. Do you know someone who thinks Africans couldn't have built something so grand? Send them this video. Let's help each other rewrite history.